My brother's girlfriend spent Thanksgiving insulting our family, claiming we were culturally inferior because we weren't Italian like her. So, I made her own bloodline shame her. My brother's girlfriend spent Thanksgiving insulting our family, claiming we were culturally inferior because we weren't Italian like her. So, I made her own bloodline shame her. My brother's girlfriend, Lucia, came to Thanksgiving dinner and spent the entire meal explaining why our food was inferior to Italian cuisine. She picked up the turkey and said in Italy they'd never serve such dry meat because Italians understood moisture and flavor. She looked at our mashed potatoes and laughed, saying her nonna would cry if she saw us eating processed potatoes instead of handmade gnocchi. She actually took my grandfather's pumpkin pie, which he'd won county fair ribbons for, and said Americans didn't understand dessert because we hadn't grown up with proper Italian dolce. She kept saying we couldn't help being culturally inferior because we weren't blessed to be born Italian. My brother Aaron sat there glowing like she was reciting poetry, instead of insulting his entire family. Lucia told us about her family's villa in Tuscany that had been in their family for centuries, and how we'd never understand the connection to land and tradition that Italians had. She said her bloodline could be traced to Roman senators, and that Mediterranean genetics were scientifically superior for intelligence and creativity. She claimed her family owned vineyards and made wine that was served to the Pope, but Americans wouldn't understand because we drank beer like barbarians. She said her mother was personal friends with Armani, and her uncle invented a type of pasta served in Michelin star restaurants. Every story got more elaborate, and every comparison made us sound more pathetic for not being Italian. The next week, Lucia invited us to her apartment for what she called an authentic Italian feast to show us what real food tasted like. Aaron begged us to come and support her cooking. We arrived to find Lucia had made spaghetti with jar sauce that she'd doused with dried herbs. She served it on paper plates and called it rustic Italian style. She'd bought grocery store breadsticks and said they were grissini from her family's bakery. The salad was iceberg lettuce with bottled dressing she called her nonna's secret recipe. We all pretended it was amazing while she lectured us about how we were finally experiencing true Italian culture. That's when I decided to do some research. Lucia's last name wasn't even Italian. It was actually Miller, and she'd changed it on social media. Her parents lived in Ohio and ran a hardware store. The villa in Tuscany was a vacation rental they'd stayed at once for 3 days. Her nonna was very much alive and living in Cleveland, not making pasta in some Italian mountain village. I found her grandmother on social media, and she seemed lovely, posting recipes for Midwest casseroles and pictures from her church potluck. I reached out saying I was Aaron's sibling and would love to learn more about Lucia's family traditions. She was thrilled and immediately started talking about how Lucia had always been creative with stories since childhood. She said Lucia had been obsessed with The Sopranos in high school and started pretending to be Italian, even though they were Scottish and German. She was worried about the lying, but thought it was harmless. So I invited her to Sunday dinner without telling Lucia. She was so touched, she said she'd bring her famous green bean casserole. For the whole week leading up to it, I barely slept, imagining 100 versions of how it might go. When she walked in, Lucia went white. The color just drained out of her face in real time, her hand frozen halfway to her wine glass. Her grandmother hugged her and said in her thick Ohio accent how nice it was to finally meet Aaron's family. Aaron, still smiling, leaned over and asked if this was the famous nonna from Italy, the one who made pasta by hand in the mountain village. And that's when her grandmother laughed, this big, genuine belly laugh, and said she'd never been to Italy in her whole life, not once. The table went dead silent. You could hear the furnace kick on in the basement. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and said she had pictures of Lucia she just had to show us. What was on that phone didn't just expose Lucia. It detonated every single lie she'd told, one photo at a time, right in front of the man she loved. Click here to watch part 2 of the story.